a couple of billionaires own more wealth than half of the people in the world. That's absurd. We need to recognize there is another way to organize an economy.
We want to see how you sustain a culture, not just an economy of cooperative endeavors.
What's dying is an economy built for the few. Hopefully we're moving into a new economy for the many.
This is the Laura Flanders Show, the place where the people who say it can't be done take a backseat to the people who are doing it. Welcome. A regular viewer of this program, you know that we often report on social change and economic change and the way they go together. As a journalist, I've seen time and again that building fair societies requires people not just having permission or rights under law to do things, but the means to transform their reality, money, jobs, or other ways to make a healthy living. As a lot of us worry about the dangerous way our winner-take-all economic system here in the States concentrates wealth and power at the top of society and leaves a whole lot of people out, many of us are asking if there are more cooperative ways we might run this place. To look at one example, I traveled to the European nation of Spain, where two of the place's most brutally repressed under the 20th century dictatorship of Generalissimo Francisco Franco survived and in the process built what are now the world's largest worker-owned co-ops. Are there lessons for us here? 80 years ago, Spain fell under a 30-year dictatorship after right beat left in a brutal civil war. All these years later, the legacy of that conflict lives on in discussions of the contrast between authoritarianism and colonialism and control on the one hand, and democracy, self-determination, and social economy on the other. How did their community-based model of business help them resist and survive under dictatorship? And how do co-ops and cooperation function today? The Mondragon Federation of the Basque region was founded in 1956. Today, it's Spain's 10th largest business, with well over 80,000 employees, and yet more overseas. American Fred Freundlich came to Mondragon 25 years ago to study the social impact of worker-owned businesses. Today, he's a professor at Mondragon University, a university funded by the Federation.
In the early years, the history of Mondragon, its beginnings, go back to the period in Spain right after the Spanish Civil War, which was 1936 to 39. So the Basque Country had sided against the dictator Franco, who won the war. Franco's government designated it as occupied enemy territories. The rest of the world was involved in the Second World War, so no one was paying attention to desperate situation in Spain or in the Basque Country in particular, characterized by destruction from the war, polarized society, political repression, dictatorship. And into this situation comes a priest, Arizmendi Arrieta, and he had a sort of a broad vision for social change based on Catholic social doctrine, which is not about preparing oneself for the next life, but creating God's kingdom on earth, so to speak. So he had this vision based on human dignity. Everyone should have sort of a minimally decent standard of living, solidarity, people should take care of each other, share when necessary, mutual and individual responsibility, hard work. And he came to the conclusion after working on this vision in reality in the community, on the ground for many years, that this vision needed to be taken into the economy, into businesses. So business became viewed for a generation or more as a place for progressive people to express their values. It's not enough on its own as a response to fascism or authoritarianism anywhere, but it's a significant part. Now we're talking about 98 to 110 or so cooperative organizations, almost all of them worker cooperatives, where the people who work in the enterprise are the members and the owners. They employ 74,000 people, roughly, all over the world.
Fred and I are not the only Americans drawn to the Basque country to learn about worker-owned co-ops and their potential to transform society. My trip to Spain coincides with a delegation led by the Democracy Collaborative and California's Beneficial State Bank. They're both U.S. groups dedicated to building new economic systems in the U.S. Democracy Collaborative Executive Vice President Marjorie Kelly speaks with Miquel Lizamis at Ulma Packaging Cooperative about how co-ops are different and how they run.
It's a co-op formed by 1,600 people, workers. So this is the meeting area in the workshop. All these workers are the members, most of them, and all the money, all the assets that we can see here belongs to the workers.
Mondragon's worker-owned co-ops aren't limited to manufacturing. Following the death of Franco, Basques began to establish media organizations that worked in their own language, which had been banned under the dictatorship. Aitor Lagoma of the Goena Media Cooperative explained that it was second nature to found new publications and channels as worker-owned businesses.
We started, I have to go to 70s or before, when Franco dies in 1880s. We need a Basque language, medias and production and all the things, because we don't have anything. We just have a TV, national TV. People from in Arrasate, for example, was the first magazine in Basque language. After start in different towns around, like Basque magazines. So we decided to put them together and make a bigger and a stronger magazine in Basque language. It was a good improvement for them to read in Basque and understand and things like that. Maybe for us was quite easy or natural thing that in 2000 when we start with this project, make it like cooperative. I'm not gonna say like a tradition, but it's like something that we understand, that if we own and we work better and we can maybe stronger.
The role that Basque identity has played and continues to play in Mondragon's resistance and culture is apparent everywhere we go. I interviewed Beneficial State Bank co-founder and CEO Kat Taylor about what she's been learning.
I came with a set of colleagues to join the delegation of Democracy Collaborative in visiting the cooperatives of Mondragon because we want to see how you sustain a culture, not just an economy of cooperative endeavors. And they have done that for over 70 years. So my colleagues and I are taking careful notes about how we could institute reforms in the capitalistic system of the United States to be more cooperative before it crashes us into climate disaster and social chaos. I hope in my lifetime I play a part in realigning finance in support of public values, and that therefore the economy reflects that.
In the Basque country, cooperatively owned businesses and an ethos of solidarity are simply a fact of life. But in comparison to the US, the Basque region is a small, tight-knit sort of place. What would it take to build the same ethos in a place as large and diverse as the United States? At the end of our time in Mondragon, I asked Marjorie Kelly and delegation member Lauren Harris of the Kenneth Rainin Foundation.
Is it too simple to draw a parallel between some of the politics of the era in which Mondragon was born and the politics of now? How do you see this moment in comparison to that one?
There's definitely a parallel. I mean, we're in hard times. People are looking for strong men all over the world today, just as happened during the Civil War and in that era. And in that earlier time, what we were seeing was the fall of the monarchy. And we passed through dictatorship and then on to democracy as a virtually universal form of government. I think something similar is happening now in the economy. What's dying is an economy built for the few, and hopefully we're moving into a new economy for the many.
You've talked about the divine right of capital.
Yeah, we lived for so long with the divine right of kings, as though it was normal that a few people had blue blood. and ruled over us. Well, today we think it's normal that the 1% holds all the assets. A couple of billionaires own more wealth than half of the people in the world. You know, that's absurd, and we need to recognize there is another way to organize an economy.
So how would you say we're doing in putting forward that other vision?
Well, I think we have a lot of work to do, and I think Mondragon gives us an example. I think we've heard that there are thousands of visitors here every year. I think we could do a lot more to help tell the story of why this model holds promise, why this example holds promise for the world. And I also think we have to really create new stories about what's possible in an economy that is a shift from an old extractive economy where a few people benefit from the labor of many to one where everyone's labor really matters and makes a contribution to their lifestyle and their life quality being improved.
Just to push you a little bit, aren't there some concerns about the question of localism, mutual aid, a community that hangs together, that is deeply networked? What happens to migrants? What happens to people that weren't here 50 years ago? People who look different or talk different or haven't been steeped in this culture.
A healthy democracy is one where everyone has voice, everyone makes a contribution, everyone's valued, that humanity is seen. We see diversity and we value it. We see and are intentional about including everyone in that democratic enterprise. And I think what's promising here, even with some limitations, is the possibility of reimagining our democracy through the workplace, and that having an effect on how we think about our democracy in the political space, in the public square. And I think that'll be the story of Mondragon 50 years from now.
From Mondragon, I traveled 300 miles to the east to the city of Barcelona in the Catalonia region, another flashpoint in the Spanish Civil War. Franco banned Catalan culture and language too, and as in the Basque country, local people resisted through alternative modes of economics and hanging together. Ivan Moreau is a historian and an expert on the cooperative movement in Catalonia, past and future. We caught up with him in a building that served as a food co-op in the 1920s and 30s and was a site of resistance when the Civil War broke out.
Now we are in La Lleialtat Sencenca. It's an ancient cooperative of consumption.
What would have happened here in history?
Many things. They learn to organize in a collective form. We learn very much from our grandfather and grandmother about how without the state and without capitalism people can live very well.
The anarchist tradition.
One of them, the Republican tradition, the anarchist tradition, and the socialism tradition in Catalonia is so important, of course.
What is happening here now?
And now we are trying to rebuild this kind of spatial organization, and we want to build a cooperative city. We talk about municipalism, no? For us, municipalism is not just a local political action made by the local governments. We understand municipalism is the collective action from the neighborhood. For us, this is an important idea because it's not another kind of politics top-down, it's bottom-up. So I think it's a different way to understand the city and to reappropriate all the city in a political, cultural, and economic way.
From the historic Lealtat Santansanca, I headed to the Ecos Cooperative, a very 21st century group of social enterprises with its own co-working space. Guernica Facundo Varecat is co-founder and coordinator of Lab Co-op, a co-op incubator housed at Ecos.
It started in 2011. After 2 years talking to each other, searching the way to put in common needs and interests, and having a new way to intercooperate between us.
The social economy that you're talking about, the cooperative economy that you're talking about, is very different from what some people hear a lot about, which is the sharing economy or co-working like WeWork. How is a place like this different from WeWork?
It's nothing related on. It's a very different focus on what economy should be the relations should be equality, equity, equality, democratic, participative, etc. For sharing economy is, okay, you have some resources as person or enterprise, okay, put in common to others and I will take benefits for it.
But no equity
With
respect to power or ownership or control. Does gender make a difference?
Social and solidarity economy and cooperatives are most participate by women. We have also a long space to improve. Also because we are in a patriarchal context.
But you're coming a long way.
Yes, we are trying.
Franco called Barcelona the Red City on account of its unions and co-ops and social economy. Those were repressed brutally under the dictatorship, but they've been making a comeback, especially recently, under the city's first woman mayor, Ada Colau, and her party, Barcelona en Comú, which is dedicated specifically to the expansion and preservation of publicly shared assets and the commons.
És un orgull ser la cara visible d'aquest procés col·lectiu i sempre estaré profundament agraïda per aquest procés col·lectiu ple de tendresa, ple d'amor, que desafia un sistema d'injustícia i està disposat a fer el que calgui per demostrar que hi havia alternativa i que podem fer un món molt millor.
Joan Subirats is the co-founder and spokesperson of Barcelona en Comú, one of the intellectuals behind the movement.
We try to avoid the idea that the only way to do politics is politics as usual in a very realistic way. You know? For example, the typical politics as usual is, local government. It's not so important that state government. Well, why not? This idea that cities are probably more global than states, in that sense, is a very powerful idea. No? And we are trying to do this network of fearless cities and to create the conditions that municipalism is not, a very low level of politics, but is a very important level of politics.
Mayo Fuster Morel served as an advisor on one of Ada Colau's key initiatives, a digital commons for Barcelona.
What has happened here in the last 4 years that you've been involved in that you are proud of?
First thing is that we have the first woman mayor in the history of Barcelona after 150 men. That's the first change. The second element is that Barcelona Comú in the municipality has been promoting a lot commons-oriented digital economy. So we are seeing particularly the platform economy or collaborative economy, in which each time the economic production and consumption is mediated by digital platforms. Mm-hmm. And these digital platforms can have the form of a very extractionist capitalist, like the case of Uber, in which put in question the workers' rights, or the case of Airbnb, which is confronting with the access to housing or the right to the city. What we see with the platform economy and the commons-oriented collaborative economy is the possibility of scale a lot this percentage of the GDP in order to promote the scalability of democratization of economy. For example, there is Son Mobilitat, which is a platform cooperative based on exchange of cars, bicycles and motorbikes, which are electric and environmentally friendly. We also have Some Energy, which is around the energy sector, which is a very essential sector of the system. So the difference in Barcelona is you have alternatives, in the sense that you have options. That's a position in which Barcelona is a worldwide reference, actually.
The commons and community are sometimes in tension, and that's part of what's been playing out here in Barcelona recently. This square was the site of many demonstrations in 2017. There's lots of tourists here now, but 2 years ago there were people protesting for Catalan independence. Those demonstrations were brutally repressed by the state government based in Madrid.
question of Catalan self-determination has become hotter than ever. What happens now to the agenda of the Commons? People don't know. In the face of repression, the temptation is often to close ranks. In the most recent elections, Ada Colau and her Commons Party lost their majority when the people of Barcelona voted for the Catalan separatist party of Ernest Maragall. Maragall's appeal lay largely in his pledge to defend Catalan self-determination against the federal government in Madrid. Your agenda, your plan for the city is what?
We're working for reaching the independence of Catalonia as a nation, as a political subject, no? One could say. Then one of the matters is which is the role of Barcelona as the capital of this country on all this process. As you know, we are in the middle of a conflict with the Spanish state. No? We have our political prisoners. No? Half of the political prisoners are members of our party, of Esquerra Republicana de Catalunya. Then, well, here we are.
How does your experience in the history here affect your feelings about democracy and sovereignty and self-determination? Do you remember those days? Can you describe those days for our audience?
How true. It's unforgettable, no? This period. It's probably we are inside our mind. What has it been fighting against dictatorships, fighting for freedoms, for basic rights, etc. I feel sincerely affected our main basic social individual rights now in the Spanish state. It's not a dictatorship, of course, no? But it's a democracy risk. Of course it is. And Ada Colau progressive forces, they have not been so clear in favor, solidarity. But we are committed.
Though Ernest Maragall's party won a narrow popular vote, Ada Colau and the Barcelona en Comú movement were able to form a coalition government and stay in power. The movement for the Commons continues, but the question of identity remains red hot. Can cosmopolitan Barcelona build a commons that really is for everyone? For answers to that question, I spoke to some whose roots in Catalonia do not go generations back. Senegalese immigrants Ababacar Tiak and Fatou Mbaye lead a co-op called Diom.
Aquí tenemos la marca Jambar que hemos empezado a producir. Llevo algunos meses que teníamos esta marca que hemos creado. Y la marca de la ropa está haciendo con telas africanas, con el diseño europeo.
¿Y el nombre?
Jambar. Jambar, que significa valiente en nuestro idioma wolof.
La historia de la cooperativa vino porque ya sabemos los boat people, cuando llegan la gente, buscan una alternativa. El motivo puede ser yo llego y quiero trabajar, el motivo económico. Y cuando llegan, la única alternativa es la venta ambulante, venden por las calles de Barcelona. Pero fijaros, cuando vinieron se han autoorganizado en sindicatos. Se han autoorganizado con el apoyo de parte de la sociedad civil y han ido vendiendo por las calles de Barcelona.
Para las mujeres, ¿hay problemas especiales?
Ir a vender en las calles es muy difícil, es muy duro por una mujer de ir en la calle vendiendo para sobrevivir y para ayudar a su familia también. Es muy duro también por una mujer de dejar su país y venir a un país que no es lo tuyo, con todos los diferencias de parte de la cultura, de todo, de la idioma y de todo.
If the commons are for everyone, can solidarity go beyond localism and ethnic or regional pride? Can the successful strategies of history be celebrated and simultaneously updated for our contemporary global reality? You live in a city where anarchists and trade unions and communists imagined they could beat the fascism of Madrid, Mussolini, and Hitler.
Yeah.
Is there a connection there? Do you feel a connection?
We are in the similar problems, if you want, inequality, a sense of our unprotection, need to reinforce the capacity of fight of people, but at the same time we have to be aware that the problems are different and the answers have to be different also.
We have to reinforce the power in the lifestyle, in the type of economy that we have, in the type of digital governance that we have and infrastructure, and at the same time having a more democratic institution.
I think the story that the future will tell at this moment is one of renewal, of the possibility of thinking about how we imagine something that's different than today and work really hard to create that future together, opening up ourselves to the possibility of new voices, new contributors, and new people and ideas coming to bear to realize a future that's better than what we have today.
In Spain's November elections, the right-wing party Vox, which celebrates the dictatorship of Franco, doubled its support. Vox would crack down even more harshly on immigration and regional independence movements, making the history of Mondragon and Barcelona more relevant than ever. I leave with a burning question: can our commitments to each other trump those who divide us? And can the circle of our common interest be drawn spaciously enough for all? For more on this episode and other forward-thinking content, and to tune into our podcast, visit our website at lauraflanders.org and follow us on social media at The LF Show.